David Chen stared at his computer screen, the blue light casting shadows across his tired face. It was past midnight again, and the architecture firm's office had emptied hours ago. Everyone else had gone home to their families to warm dinners and conversations about their day. But David stayed, perfecting the designs for the Riverside development project that could make his career. His phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Claire, again. "You coming home tonight?" He glanced at it and kept working. She'd understand. She always did. That's what he told himself anyway, as he adjusted the angle of a virtual rooftop garden for the 100th time. David had met Claire Rodriguez 6 years ago at a charity fundraiser. He'd been the young architect who designed the community center they were celebrating. She'd been the nurse who volunteered there every Saturday, teaching health classes to immigrant families. She'd walked up to him with a bright smile and told him the building's natural lighting made the kids feel hopeful. Something about the way she said it, like she actually meant it, made him forget about everyone else in the room. Their early days together felt like something out of a movie. Weekend trips to Michigan's lakeside towns, long dinners where they'd talk until the restaurants closed. Claire would tell him stories about her patients, never using names, but painting pictures of human courage that made his throat tight. He'd share his dreams of designing buildings that could change how people lived. She'd listen like every word mattered. Back then, he'd leave work early to surprise her after her shift. He'd memorized her schedule, knew which days were the hardest, and would show up with her favorite Thai food and that specific green tea she liked from the little shop in Chinatown. But that version of David felt like a stranger now. The Chen project is your ticket to senior architect. His boss Tom had told him 8 months ago. But I need to see dedication. The partners are watching. So David dedicated himself. Mornings started earlier. Nights stretched longer. Weekends disappeared into site visits and client meetings. At first, Claire supported it. She'd kiss him goodbye at dawn, leave dinner in the fridge with little notes. "Proud of you," written on a yellow sticky note next to leftover pasta. "You've got this," tucked into his laptop bag. But support has a breaking point, and David missed it completely. He missed her birthday dinner. Not on purpose. He'd genuinely forgotten. Buried under deadline pressure for the project's second phase, he'd shown up at the restaurant an hour late to find Claire sitting alone. The candle on the cupcake she'd brought already burned down to nothing. Her smile when she saw him was sad in a way that should have scared him. "It's okay," she'd said. "I know work is important right now." He'd promised to make it up to her. He never did. Then came their anniversary. 6 years together. Claire had planned a weekend trip to the cabin where they'd spent their first vacation. She'd booked it months in advance, cleared her schedule at the hospital, packed his favorite snacks for the drive. Thursday night, 2 days before they were supposed to leave, Tom called David into his office. "The investors want to move up the presentation this Saturday. I know it's not ideal, but this is what separates good architects from great ones." David had stood in that office, phone heavy in his pocket, knowing Claire was at home, probably packing their bags. He thought about her face when he'd tell her. He thought about 6 years of her patience, her kindness, her understanding. Then he thought about the corner office he'd always wanted. The recognition. The success. "I'll be here Saturday," he'd said. The fight that followed was the worst they'd ever had, not because Claire yelled. She didn't. She just looked at him with tears streaming down her face and asked a simple question. "When did I become so easy to disappoint?" He didn't have an answer. They went to the cabin anyway, but it was different. Claire was quiet most of the weekend. She'd sit on the porch overlooking the lake, and David would catch her staring at the water, with an expression he couldn't read. He told himself they'd be fine once the project wrapped up. Once he got the promotion, once things calmed down. Things never calm down when you keep choosing work over the people you love. The pattern continued. Missed dinners became normal. Date nights turned into maybe next week. Claire stopped leaving notes in his lunch. She stopped waiting up for him. The apartment they shared started feeling like a place where two strangers happened to sleep. David's sister May noticed during a family dinner. She'd pulled him aside while Claire helped their mother in the kitchen. "You're losing her," May had whispered. "I can see it in her eyes." "We're fine," David had insisted. "Just a busy season." "There's always a busy season with you," May had shot back. "When does she get to be the priority?" He'd brushed it off. May didn't understand the pressure he was under. The competition at the firm. The expectation to prove himself. Claire knew what she'd signed up for when she fell in love with an ambitious architect. Except she hadn't signed up for this. Nobody signs up to be forgotten. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in March. David was working late again reviewing structural calculations when Claire came to the office. She never came to the office. She stood in the doorway in her scrubs, still wearing her hospital badge, looking exhausted from a double shift. "Can we talk?" she asked. Something in her voice made David's stomach drop. He saved his work and followed her to the conference room. Claire sat down slowly, like her bones hurt. She folded her hands on the table, and David noticed she wasn't wearing the promise ring he'd given her on their first anniversary. "I got offered a position," she said quietly.
Head nurse at a community clinic in Seattle.
"It's everything I've been working toward, serving underserved communities, building programs from the ground up. It's my dream job." David felt a weird mix of pride and panic. "That's amazing. When would you start?" 2 months. I'd need to move by May." She looked at him directly. "I want you to come with me." The words hung in the air between them. David's mind raced. Seattle, 3,000 miles from Chicago. From his firm. From the project that was so close to completion. From the promotion he'd sacrificed everything for. "Claire, I can't just leave. The Chen project wraps up in 4 months. I'm being considered for senior architect. This is everything I've worked for. And what have I been working for?" Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. "I've been working to build a relationship with someone who's never here. I've been working to be patient, to be understanding, to be enough reason for you to come home at night. That's not fair, isn't it?" She wiped her eyes. "When was the last time you asked about my day? When was the last time you remembered we had plans before I reminded you? When was the last time I felt like I mattered more than a building?" David felt defensive anger rising. "I'm doing this for us, for our future, so we can have a good life. We have a life now, David, or we're supposed to, but I'm living it alone." She took a shaky breath. "I'm not asking you to give up your dreams. I'm asking you to include me in them. Come to Seattle. Find a firm there. Build something new with me." He wanted to say yes. Part of him, buried under ambition and fear of failure, wanted to pack up that night and follow her anywhere. But the louder part, the part that had been driving him for months, couldn't let go. "What about long distance?" he offered. "It's only 3,000 miles. We can fly back and forth, make it work for a year until things settle here." Claire's face crumpled. That's when he knew he'd already lost her. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "I can't be the one always accommodating, always adjusting, always waiting for you to have time for me. I love you, David. I love you so much it's breaking me, but I can't keep fighting for us by myself." "So that's it? You're just giving up?" "No," she said, standing up. "You gave up. Months ago. I just finally noticed." She left the conference room. David sat there, stunned, telling himself she was being dramatic. She'd cool off. They'd talk it through. She wouldn't really leave, but Claire Rodriguez didn't make empty threats. That weekend, David had to fly to New York for a client meeting. It was only 2 days. When he got back Sunday night, half the apartment was gone. Her books from the shelves, her photos from the walls, the coffee maker she'd brought when she moved in, the plant she'd kept alive on the windowsill despite David never remembering to water it. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter, her handwriting neat and familiar. "David, I will always love the man I met 6 years ago, the one who used to leave work early to bring me dinner, who remembered that I like my tea with honey, not sugar, who looked at me like I was his favorite part of the day. I hope you find your way back to him someday. I hope you build everything you've dreamed of. I hope it makes you happy. I'm going to Seattle to build something too, a life where I matter, where my dreams count, where love isn't something that happens when there's time left over. Take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself. Love always, Claire." David read it 3 times. Then he crumpled it up, threw it in the trash, and opened his laptop. He had renderings to finish. The project presentation was in a week. He didn't have time to fall apart. He told himself he'd call her once things calmed down. Once he got the promotion, once he had space to think. He told his friends they'd grown apart. Mutual decision. Both focusing on careers. All the easy lies that made it sound reasonable instead of devastating. His sister May called him out immediately. "You let her walk away. She's the one who left, David snapped, because you were already gone. That night, David found the crumpled note in the trash. He smoothed it out and tucked it in his desk drawer, under the contracts and blueprints. He told himself he'd throw it away later. He never did. 3 months passed. David buried himself in work the way drowning people gasp for air. The Chen project wrapped up successfully. The presentation to the partners went perfectly. On a Friday afternoon in June, Tom called him into the office with a smile. "Congratulations, Senior Architect Chen. You earned it." David shook hands, accepted congratulations, went out for celebratory drinks with colleagues, came home to his empty apartment with his new title and his hollow victory. He sat on the couch in the silence and realized he had nobody to call. Nobody to share the news with who'd actually care. His mother would be polite. May would point out what it cost him. His friends at the firm were competitors as much as colleagues. Claire would have been proud. She would have ordered his favorite pizza, opened a bottle of wine, made him tell her every detail. She would have celebrated like his success was hers too. But Claire was in Seattle, building her life without him. David looked around the apartment. The walls were bare where her photos used to hang. The bookshelf had gaps. The windowsill plant had died. He'd won everything he thought he wanted, and he'd never felt more alone in his life. The corner office had windows on 2 sides, floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking Chicago's skyline. David had imagined this view 1,000 times, pictured himself standing here as Senior Architect Chen, master of his domain. In his fantasies, the view always felt triumphant. In reality, it just felt empty. He'd moved into the new office on a Monday. His assistant helped arrange his things, made comments about how lucky he was, how hard he'd worked for this. David smiled and nodded, unpacking the boxes of awards and project models. When she left, he sat in the expensive leather chair and stared at the bare walls. At his old desk, he'd had a photo. Just one. Claire laughing at something he'd said, her head thrown back, joy radiating from every pixel. He'd taken it on a random Saturday morning, coffee shop sunshine streaming through the window behind her. For 3 years, that photo sat on his desk, and he'd glance at it between meetings, between phone calls, between moments of stress. He'd taken it down the week after she left, told himself it was time to move forward. But he hadn't thrown it away. It was in his desk drawer under some folders. He told himself he'd forgotten about it. He was lying. The first month in the new position was a blur of responsibility. Bigger projects, bigger clients, bigger expectations. David worked the same brutal hours, except now he was approving other people's overtime instead of just clocking his own. The partners praised his dedication. Tom clapped him on the back at meetings, called him the future of the firm. David went home each night to an apartment that echoed. He'd tried to make it better. Bought new furniture, threw out some of Claire's leftover things he'd been avoiding, got rid of the coffee maker she'd left behind, the one that made her specific green tea. Replaced it with a fancy espresso machine he used once and forgot about. But you can't renovate away loneliness. His routine became mechanical. Wake up at 6, coffee, shower, work by 7:30. Meetings, calls, design reviews, client presentations. Lunch at his desk, usually something delivered that he ate while reading emails. More meetings, more calls. Leave around 9 or 10. Stop for takeout on the way home because his fridge only held condiments and expired milk. Eat in front of the television, watching shows he didn't care about. Sleep, repeat. Weekends were worse. At least during the week he had the excuse of work. But Saturdays and Sundays stretched out like deserts. His friends from college had mostly married, moved to suburbs, started families. They'd invite him to barbecues and birthday parties, and he'd make excuses. Too much work. Too tired. Maybe next time. Truth was, he couldn't stand watching happy couples. Couldn't stand seeing what he'd thrown away reflected in every casual touch, every shared laugh, every moment of easy affection between people who'd figured out what he'd missed. His sister May didn't let him hide, though. She showed up at his apartment one Saturday morning, unannounced, with bagels and an expression that meant business. David was still in sweatpants, unshaven, his apartment looking like a tornado had hit it. "When was the last time you cleaned?" May asked, moving takeout containers off the couch. "I've been busy. You've been avoiding life." She sat down, patted the cushion next to her. "Sit, we're talking." David sat. May handed him a bagel he didn't want. "I called Claire," she said. David's head snapped up. "You what?" Relax, I didn't tell her you've turned into a hermit.
I just wanted to check on her.
See how Seattle was treating her. And? She sounds good. Happy, actually. She's running that clinic, building programs, making a difference. She's even started painting again. Remember how she used to paint? David did remember. Claire used to set up an easel on their apartment balcony on Sunday mornings, lose herself in watercolors while he read the paper. She'd been good at it, had talked about taking classes someday. But life got busy. The easel got packed away, another thing that had fallen to the bottom of the priority list. That's great, David said, forcing his voice to sound normal. I'm happy for her. Are you? May looked at him hard. Because you look miserable. I'm fine. Work is going well. The promotion is everything I wanted. Is it, though? May gestured around the messy apartment. Because from where I'm sitting, you traded the love of your life for a bigger office and a fancier title. Was it worth it? David felt anger flash through him. You don't understand the pressure, the competition, what it takes to succeed in this field. I understand plenty. I'm a surgeon, remember? I work brutal hours. I have lives depending on my decisions. But I still make time for my family, for my friends, for the things that matter. Good for you. This isn't about me, David. This is about you realizing you made a mistake before it's too late. It's already too late. She's in Seattle. She's moved on. She's happy. May stood up, frustrated. So call her. Tell her you were wrong. Tell her you want another chance, and then say what? Sorry I chose a building over you. Want to get back together? She deserves better than that. She deserves the truth. That you love her. That you've been an idiot. That you'd do anything to fix it. After May left, David sat in the quiet apartment, her words echoing. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to Claire's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. He'd deleted their text history in a moment of angry pride. But her contact was still there. Her profile picture was old, from 2 years ago. She was wearing his jacket, smiling at the camera like he'd hung the moon. He almost pressed call. Almost. Pride stopped him. Or fear. Or the certainty that he'd destroyed something too good to repair. Work became his excuse for everything. His reason for declining invitations, for avoiding his family, for not dealing with the gnawing emptiness that had taken up residence in his chest. The firm assigned him a major project, a mixed-use development on the waterfront. The client was demanding, the timeline aggressive, the design challenges complex. David threw himself into it like a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. His team noticed. His junior architects started making comments about his intensity, his perfectionism, his inability to be satisfied with anything. He'd send back designs with pages of notes, demand revisions, push deadlines. He became the boss he'd always promised himself he wouldn't be. One afternoon, his newest hire, a kid fresh out of grad school named Ryan, knocked on his office door. "Mr. Chen, can I talk to you for a minute?" David waved him in, not looking up from his computer screen. "I just wanted to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to work here. This firm is my dream job." "That's great, Ryan. Was there something you needed?" The kid hesitated. "My girlfriend and I are getting married next month. I wanted to request that Friday off if possible. I know we're on deadline, but the rehearsal dinner is that night and I promised I'd be there." David finally looked up. Ryan was young, maybe 26, with eager eyes and an engagement ring he kept fidgeting with. He looked nervous, like he was asking for something unreasonable. "Take the day," David said quietly. "Take the whole weekend. Your wedding is more important than this project." Ryan's face lit up. "Really? Thank you so much. I promise I'll make up the hours. I'll work extra next week." After he left, David sat back in his chair. He thought about Claire, about the wedding they'd never planned because he'd always said someday, and when work calms, down. He thought about all the moments he'd missed because of his obsession with success. He pulled open his desk drawer. The photo was still there, buried under folders and old contracts. Claire's laugh, frozen in time, mocking him with everything he'd lost. That night, walking home from the office, David noticed things he usually missed. A couple holding hands on the corner, waiting for the light to change. A father carrying his sleeping kid on his shoulders. An old man buying flowers from a street vendor, probably for his wife. Small moments, ordinary moments. The kind of moments that actually mattered. The bartender was older, probably 60, with kind eyes and the relaxed manner of someone who'd heard every story. "Rough day?" he asked, setting down the drink. "Rough few months. Work or love?" David laughed bitterly. "Is there a difference?" "Usually, yeah. Work problems have solutions. Love problems need time. What if you ruined it? What if you had something perfect and you destroyed it? Because you were too stupid to see what mattered." The bartender leaned on the bar. "I'm going to tell you something my father told me when I was about your age. I was working 3 jobs, trying to build something, never home. My wife left me. Took our daughter. I was furious, thought she was being unreasonable. What happened? I got successful. Made a lot of money. Had everything I thought I wanted." He gestured around the modest bar. "Then I bought this place, slowed down, tried to figure out what went wrong. Took me 10 years to realize my father was right." "What did he say?" He said, "Nobody on their deathbed wishes they'd spent more time at the office. They wish they'd spent more time with the people they loved." David finished his drink in silence. The bartender moved away to help other customers, leaving him with thoughts that cut like broken glass. He walked home slowly that night. The city was alive around him, people living their lives, making memories, choosing what mattered. He got to his building, took the elevator up, unlocked the door to his empty apartment. Everything was exactly as he'd left it that morning. Clean, organized, silent, a showroom for a life nobody was living. David went to his desk, pulled out the photo of Claire. Her joy seemed to radiate from the frame, a reminder of what happiness actually looked like. He propped it on his bedside table, where he'd see it first thing in the morning. He found her goodbye note, the one he'd smoothed out and saved. "Read it again, every word a small cut. I hope you build everything you've dreamed of. I hope it makes you happy," but he wasn't happy. The corner office didn't make him happy. The senior architect title didn't make him happy. The successful projects, the bigger paycheck, the professional recognition, none of it filled the hole Claire had left. David lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and admitted something to himself he'd been avoiding for months. He'd made a terrible mistake. He'd chosen wrong. He'd built his dream career on the foundation of a broken heart. And now he was living in the ruins of what could have been. His phone was on the nightstand, inches from Claire's photo. He picked it up, opened her contact again. It was late in Chicago, which meant it was even later in Seattle. She'd be asleep. He couldn't call now, but tomorrow. Tomorrow he'd call. Tomorrow he'd tell her everything. That he was sorry. That he'd been wrong. That he missed her every single day. That success meant nothing without someone to share it with. Tomorrow he'd fix this. He set the phone down and closed his eyes, feeling something like hope for the first time in months. He had no idea that tomorrow would bring something else entirely. He had no idea that in just a few hours, his phone would ring in the middle of the night with news that would shatter his world into pieces smaller than he knew existed. He had no idea that by this time tomorrow, he'd be on a plane to Seattle, praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in, begging for a chance he didn't deserve. David fell asleep holding onto a plan that would never happen because fate had a different plan entirely. David's phone rang at 2:47 in the morning. He jerked awake, heart pounding, disoriented in the darkness. For a second he thought he'd dreamed it. Then it rang again, the sound cutting through the silent apartment like a siren. He grabbed for it, nearly knocking it off the nightstand. Unknown number. Seattle area code. His hands shook as he answered. "Hello? Is this David Chen?" A male voice, young, shaking badly. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Tyler Rodriguez, Claire's brother." David sat up fast, suddenly wide awake. He'd met Tyler once, briefly, at a family dinner years ago. Claire's younger brother, the one studying pre-med. Why was he calling at 3 in the morning? "Tyler, what's wrong?" "Is Claire okay?" The pause that followed lasted forever. "There's been an accident," 3 words. Simple words. But they hit David like a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs. What kind of accident? What happened? Is she hurt? She was driving home from work. Late shift at the clinic. A drunk driver ran a red light at the intersection near her apartment. Hit her car on the driver's side. David was standing now, pacing, his free hand pressed against his head. "Is she okay? Tell me she's okay." "She's alive." Tyler's voice cracked. "But David, she's in bad shape." They airlifted her to Harborview Medical Center. "She's in the ICU. The doctors say the next 24 hours are critical." The room tilted. David grabbed the edge of his dresser to steady himself. What are her injuries? What did the doctors say exactly? Head trauma. Internal bleeding. Broken ribs. Her left leg is fractured in 2 places. They had to do emergency surgery when she came in. She's still unconscious. They have her on a ventilator. David couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The image of Claire, broken and unconscious, hooked up to machines, was something his brain couldn't process. I'm coming. I'm getting on the first flight. Which hospital? Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. But David, there's something else you should know. What? Tyler's voice dropped to almost a whisper. When they brought her in, she was in and out of consciousness. The paramedic said she kept saying your name. She was asking for you. The words broke something inside David's chest. He made a sound that might have been a sob or might have been something worse. She was asking for me? Yeah, my mom is flying in from Phoenix right now. My dad too. But Claire was asking for you. I found your number in her phone. I know you guys broke up and I know it's a lot to ask, but if there's any chance you could come, I think she needs you here. I'm coming. I'm booking a flight right now. I'll be there as soon as I can. David hung up and immediately opened his laptop with shaking hands. His vision was blurry. It took him a second to realize he was crying. The first flight to Seattle left at 5:15 in the morning. 2 hours from now. He booked it without thinking about the cost, threw clothes in a bag without caring what he grabbed. Jeans, shirts, whatever his hands touched first. His mind was racing, jumping between memories and worst-case scenarios. Claire laughing in that coffee shop. Claire unconscious in a hospital bed. Claire telling him she couldn't fight for them alone. Claire asking for him while bleeding in a wrecked car. He'd let her walk away. He'd watched her leave and told himself it was for the best. And now she was fighting for her life 3,000 miles away, and she'd been calling his name. David called a cab. Couldn't wait for a rideshare. Paced his apartment until it arrived, every second feeling like an hour. The drive to O'Hare Airport was a blur of streetlights and desperate prayers to a God he hadn't talked to since childhood. Please let her be okay. Please. I'll do anything. Just let her be okay. The airport was nearly empty at 4 in the morning. David checked his bag, went through security like a ghost, barely aware of his surroundings. He sat at the gate, leg bouncing, checking his phone every 30 seconds like it might have news. He pulled up Claire's contact. Stared at her picture. That smile, that joy. The idea that she might never smile again made him want to scream. The woman sitting next to him at the gate noticed his distress. Are you all right, honey? David shook his head. Couldn't form words. Do you need me to call someone for you? I'm going to see someone. In the hospital. She was in an accident. The woman's face softened with immediate understanding. I'm so sorry. I'll pray for her. What's her name? Claire. I'll pray for Claire. And for you. David nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The woman's kindness was too much. If he acknowledged it, he'd fall apart completely. The plane boarded. David found his seat, buckled in, and realized he had 4 hours ahead of him with nothing to do but think. 4 hours suspended in the air while Claire lay in a hospital bed. 4 hours of not knowing if she was getting better or worse. 4 hours of imagining every terrible possibility. He couldn't sit still. His leg bounced constantly. The flight attendants asked if he needed anything. Water, snacks. He shook his head to all of it. The man in the seat next to him, a businessman with a laptop, glanced over with concern. You okay, man? Someone I love is in the hospital. Car accident. I'm trying to get to her. The man closed his laptop. That's rough. How bad? Bad ICU ventilator. They said the next 24 hours are critical. Is she your wife? David's throat closed up. No, we broke up. I let her go. I was an idiot and I let her walk away, and now I might never get the chance to tell her I was wrong. The man was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that hit harder than he probably meant it to. My wife left me 5 years ago. I was working all the time, never home. Thought I was building something important. She tried to tell me, but I didn't listen. Now she's remarried. Got 2 kids with some guy who actually comes home for dinner. I got a promotion and an empty house. David looked at him. The man's eyes were sad. I'd give anything for one more chance to do it right, the man continued. So when you get to that hospital, you tell her everything. Don't hold back. Don't let pride get in the way. Tell her the truth. What if it's too late? Then at least she'll know. At least you won't spend the rest of your life wondering what if. He stopped at a bar, something he rarely did. It was one of those neighborhood places, nothing fancy, where people actually talk to each other instead of staring at phones. He sat at the bar, ordered a whiskey, and tried not to think. The flight crawled by. David couldn't eat the snack they offered, couldn't focus on the movie on the screen, couldn't do anything but sit there with his thoughts spinning. He remembered their first date. Claire had worn a yellow dress and laughed at all his nervous jokes. He remembered the night he'd told her he loved her, 3 months in, too soon by conventional standards, but he couldn't hold it in anymore. She'd said it back immediately, like she'd been waiting. He remembered lazy Sunday mornings, her painting on the balcony while he read. He remembered the way she'd rest her head on his shoulder during movies, the way she'd steal his hoodies, the way she'd leave sticky notes around the apartment with little messages. Don't forget to eat lunch. You're going to do great today. I love you even when you leave your socks on the floor. He'd stopped noticing the notes somewhere along the way. They'd become background noise in his rush to succeed. When had he stopped seeing her? When had she become something to work around instead of someone to come home to? The plane finally landed. David practically ran through the airport, grabbed his bag, and got in a cab. Harborview Medical Center. As fast as you can. The driver must have heard the desperation in his voice because he didn't waste time. Seattle streets passed by in a blur. David had never been to this city. Claire's new home. The place she'd built a life without him. The hospital was huge, modern, intimidating. David ran to the front desk. Claire Rodriguez. She was brought in last night. Car accident, ICU. The receptionist checked her computer. Are you family? David hesitated. I'm her fiancé. The lie came easily. Too easily. But he'd say anything to get to her. The woman gave him directions to the ICU waiting room. David took the elevator up, his heart hammering so hard he could feel it in his throat. The ICU waiting room was quiet. A few people scattered in chairs, all wearing the same expression of exhausted worry. David looked around, trying to figure out which one was Tyler. A young guy stood up from a chair in the corner. Early 20s, with Claire's eyes and her dark hair. He looked exhausted. David. Tyler. They shook hands awkwardly. Tyler looked like he'd been crying. Any updates? David asked. She's still unconscious. Still on the ventilator. They're monitoring the brain swelling. The internal bleeding has stopped, which is good, but they won't know the extent of the damage until she wakes up. Can I see her? They're only letting immediate family in. My parents should be here in about an hour. I have to see her, please. Tyler looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. Come with me. If anyone asks, you're her fiancé. I heard you tell the receptionist. I won't correct it. Thank you. Tyler led him through the ICU doors. The sounds hit David first. Beeping monitors, humming machines, the quiet efficiency of nurses moving between rooms, the smell of antiseptic and something else he couldn't identify. They stopped outside a room. Tyler put his hand on David's shoulder. She looks rough. Just prepare yourself. Nothing could have prepared him. Claire lay in the hospital bed, and she didn't look like Claire. Her face was swollen and bruised. A breathing tube snaked down her throat, connected to a ventilator that hissed rhythmically. Lines ran into both arms. Monitors surrounded her, displaying numbers David didn't understand but knew were important. Her left leg was in a cast, elevated. Bandages covered her arms. Her beautiful dark hair was partially shaved on one side where they'd operated. David stood frozen in the doorway. Tyler had to gently push him forward. You can talk to her. The doctors say unconscious patients can sometimes hear. It might help. David moved to the bedside on shaking legs. He pulled up a chair and sat down, taking her hand carefully, afraid he might hurt her even more. Her hand was warm. That was something. Warm and alive. Claire, he whispered. It's me. It's David, I'm here, nothing. Just the steady beep of the heart monitor and the hiss of the ventilator. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. For choosing work over you. For letting you leave. For being too stupid to see what mattered until it was too late. His voice broke. You have to wake up, okay? You have to wake up so I can tell you all of this when you can actually hear me. So I can tell you that I love you. That I never stopped loving you. That every day without you has been empty. Tyler had quietly left the room, giving them privacy. David was alone with Claire and the machines keeping her alive. I got the promotion, he continued, tears streaming down his face. Senior architect. Corner office. Everything I thought I wanted. And it means nothing. None of it means anything without you. He thought about Tyler saying she'd been calling his name, asking for him while the paramedics loaded her into the ambulance. Even after everything, even after he'd let her go, she'd thought of him. I was going to call you, David said, this morning. I had finally worked up the courage to call and tell you I was wrong, to ask if there was any chance you'd give me another shot, but I waited too long. I'm always waiting too long. A nurse came in to check Claire's vitals. She smiled sadly at David. You can keep talking to her. Studies show it helps. After the nurse left, David stayed. He talked about everything. About how empty his apartment felt. About his sister May and what she'd said. About the bartender's advice. About the businessman on the plane. He told her about the photo he'd kept in his desk drawer. About her goodbye note that he'd read 100 times. About how he'd tried to move on and failed completely because you can't move on from the person who was supposed to be your forever. Hours passed. Tyler came back with coffee David didn't drink. Told him Claire's parents would arrive soon. They know about you, Tyler said carefully. They know you broke up. Mom was pretty angry at you for a while. She should be. I deserve it. But Claire never stopped talking about you. She'd mention things you'd said or places you'd gone. Mom noticed. Said Claire was trying to move on, but her heart wasn't in it. David looked at Claire's still face. Did she meet anyone else? In Seattle? No, she threw herself into work at the clinic. Made friends. Started painting again, but no one else. Tyler paused. I think she was still in love with you. The words were a gift and a curse. Hope and regret tangled together. When Claire's parents arrived, David stood to meet them. Her mother took one look at him and her face hardened. You have a lot of nerve showing up here. Mom, Tyler warned. But then her mother saw David's face. The tears. The devastation. The genuine anguish. Something in her expression softened slightly. She asked for you, her mother said quietly, when the paramedics were loading her. She was confused in pain and she asked for you. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Claire's father just looked tired. She loved you. Even after you let her go, she loved you. I hope you understand what that means. David did. He understood perfectly. And it was breaking him into pieces. They sat in the waiting room together through the day. Doctors came with updates that were cautiously hopeful but offered no guarantees. The brain swelling was stabilizing. The surgery had been successful. But Claire remained unconscious, and until she woke up, they wouldn't know the full extent of her injuries. David didn't leave. He refused to leave. He stayed through shift changes and visiting hours and meals he didn't eat. He stayed while Claire's parents took breaks and Tyler dozed in chairs. That first night, a nurse he hadn't seen before came to check on Claire. She looked at David still sitting in the same chair. You should go home. Get some rest. She needs you strong when she wakes up. I'm not leaving, the nurse smiled gently. How long have you been married? We're not married. We're not even together anymore. I ruined it, but I love her. And I'm not leaving until she wakes up. The nurse checked Claire's monitors, made some notes. Before she left, she turned back to David. I've been a nurse for 20 years. I've seen a lot of people in these rooms. A lot of visitors who come and go. But the ones who stay, the ones who refuse to leave no matter what, those are the ones fighting with the same strength as our patients. Keep fighting for her. I will. That night, David pulled his chair as close to Claire's bed as possible. He held her hand gently and watched her breathe. Each rise and fall of her chest, assisted by machines but still there, was a small miracle. Tomorrow, he whispered. Wake up tomorrow, please. I need you to wake up so I can spend the rest of my life making this up to you. I need you to wake up so I can show you that I've changed, that I finally understand what matters, that it's you. It's always been you. The monitors beeped steadily. The ventilator hissed. Claire slept on, trapped somewhere between life and whatever came next. And David stayed, holding her hand, refusing to let go this time. He'd let her walk away once. He wouldn't make that mistake again. Day 3 in the ICU, and David had memorized every sound. The rhythm of Claire's ventilator, the beep pattern of her heart monitor, the soft squeak of nurses' shoes on the linoleum floor, the hiss of the automatic doors opening and closing as doctors made their rounds. He'd barely left her side. Tyler brought him clean clothes from a nearby store. Claire's mother brought him food he picked at but rarely finished. The nurses had stopped asking him to leave during shift changes. They'd accepted that he was a permanent fixture in room 412. His phone kept buzzing with messages from work. Tom asking where he was. Colleagues wondering about the waterfront project. Deadlines approaching. Meetings being rescheduled. David ignored all of it. For the first time in his career, work was the last thing on his mind. On the morning of day 4, something changed. David was holding Claire's hand, reading poetry to her from a collection he'd found in the hospital gift shop. He remembered she used to love poetry, would read it on Sunday mornings with her coffee. It was a small thing he'd forgotten about her, one of 1,000 small things he'd stopped noticing. He was midway through a poem about hope when her hand moved. Just barely. A slight squeeze, so subtle he thought he'd imagined it. Claire? He stood up, leaning closer. Claire, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand again. Nothing. Maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe exhaustion was making him see things that weren't there. Then her fingers tightened around his. Definite. Intentional. David's heart nearly exploded. He pressed the call button, and within seconds a nurse was in the room. She squeezed my hand. Twice. She's responding. The nurse checked Claire's pupils with a light, examined the monitors. I'll get the doctor. This is a good sign, a very good sign. Dr. Patel, the neurologist who'd been overseeing Claire's care, arrived quickly. She performed a series of tests while David stood back, hardly daring to breathe. She's showing increased brain activity, Dr. Patel said, studying the monitors. We might be able to reduce the sedation, see if she'll wake up on her own. But I need to warn you, when patients wake up from trauma like this, they're often confused, disoriented. She might not recognize you immediately. I don't care, as long as she wakes up. Over the next several hours, they slowly reduced the sedation. David watched every tiny change. A flutter of her eyelids, a slight movement of her head. Each small sign felt like a miracle. Claire's parents were called in. They stood on the other side of the bed, her mother holding her daughter's other hand, tears streaming down her face. Come back to us, Mija, she whispered. Please come back. Just after 2 in the afternoon, 5 days after the accident, Claire's eyes opened. They were unfocused at first, confused, struggling against the breathing tube. Dr. Patel moved quickly, checking her responses, explaining what was happening in a calm voice. Claire, you're in the hospital. You were in a car accident. You're safe now. I need you to stay calm. We're going to remove the breathing tube, but I need you to stay still. Can you do that for me? Claire's eyes moved around the room, landing on her mother, then her father, then finally on David. He couldn't read her expression. Recognition? Confusion? Something else? The process of removing the ventilator was quick but looked painful. Claire coughed and gagged, her whole body tensing. Her mother stroked her hair, speaking softly in Spanish. Words of comfort David couldn't understand but felt in his bones. When it was done, Claire lay back against the pillows, breathing on her own, eyes closed. Her voice, when it finally came, was barely a whisper. Mom? I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Claire's eyes opened again, found her mother's face. Then her father's, then slowly they moved to David. She stared at him for a long moment. David felt his heart hammering, afraid she'd tell him to leave, afraid she wouldn't want him there. You came, she whispered. Those 2 words broke him. He moved closer, careful not to crowd her. Of course I came. I got on the first plane. I've been here since the day after the accident. How long? 5 days. Claire's eyes filled with tears. You stayed? I'm not going anywhere. She closed her eyes again, exhausted by even that brief conversation. Dr. Patel ushered them out to let Claire rest, explaining that consciousness was a good sign but recovery would be slow. In the waiting room, David finally let himself fall apart. Tyler sat next to him, put a hand on his shoulder. She's going to be okay, Tyler said. She's tough. She'll get through this. I should have been there, David said. If I hadn't let her go, if I'd been with her in Seattle, maybe I could have driven her home from work that night. Maybe this wouldn't have happened. You can't think like that. The drunk driver who hit her, that's who's responsible, not you. But David couldn't shake the guilt. Couldn't stop thinking about all the ways he'd failed her. Over the next week, Claire's condition slowly improved. The breathing tube stayed out. Her vitals stabilized. The swelling in her brain decreased. But the recovery was hard. She was in constant pain. The broken ribs made breathing hurt. Her fractured leg throbbed. Headaches came in waves that made her cry. She couldn't walk, could barely sit up without help. David was there through all of it. He learned her medication schedule, knew when the nurses would come for physical therapy, helped her with the small things that dignity made hard to ask for, held her hand through the bad moments when pain medication wasn't enough and all he could do was be present. Claire's parents had to return to Phoenix after 2 weeks. Her father's job only gave him so much time off. Her mother cried when she left, made David promise to call every day with updates. "Take care of my daughter," she told him. "I will. I promise." Tyler stayed longer, but eventually he had to get back to school. Before he left, he pulled David aside. "I don't know what you guys are going to figure out when this is all over, but I see how you've been here for her, how you haven't left. That matters. Whatever happened before, you're showing up now." After Tyler left, it was just David and Claire. The dynamic shifted. They were alone together in a way they hadn't been since before the breakup. The first real conversation happened on a Tuesday morning. Claire was having a good day, pain relatively controlled, mind clear. David was reading to her from the newspaper when she interrupted him. "David, stop." He put the paper down. "What's wrong? Are you in pain? Do you need the nurse?" "No, I just need to ask you something. Anything. Why are you here?" The question hung between them. David had known it was coming eventually. "Because you were hurt. Because I needed to be here, but we broke up. I left, you let me go. You made it clear what mattered more to you." David set the newspaper aside and moved his chair closer to her bed. "I was an idiot. A complete total idiot. You were right about everything. I chose wrong. I picked my career over the person I loved, and it was the worst mistake of my life." Claire looked away. "You got your promotion, though. Tyler told me. Senior architect. Everything you wanted. The promotion means nothing without you. The corner office is empty. Success is empty. Everything I thought mattered turned out to be worthless. You don't have to say these things because I'm hurt. I'm not saying them because you're hurt. I'm saying them because they're true. I realized it before the accident. I was going to call you the morning Tyler called me instead. I was going to tell you everything, ask if you'd give me another chance. But I waited too long, and then this happened." Claire was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was small. "I tried so hard to stop loving you. I moved 3,000 miles away. Started over. Built a new life. Made new friends. I threw myself into work at the clinic, into painting, into everything I could think of to fill the space you left. Did it work?" She looked at him then, eyes wet. "No, I thought about you every day. Wondered if you ever thought about me. Wondered if you regretted letting me go. Some nights I'd almost call you, but pride would stop me. I didn't want to be the one who came crawling back. You shouldn't have to crawl back. I should have chased after you the day you left. Should have gotten on that plane to Seattle and begged you to forgive me. But you didn't. No, I didn't. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life." They sat in heavy silence. Outside the window, Seattle rain fell steadily, gray and endless. "I'm scared," Claire finally said. "Of what?" "That you're here because you feel guilty. That once I'm better, once I don't need help anymore, you'll leave again. That you'll go back to Chicago and your corner office, and I'll be alone in Seattle, broken in more ways than just physically." David leaned forward, taking her hand carefully. "I'm not going anywhere. I quit my job." Claire's eyes went wide. "What?" "I called Tom 3 days ago. Told him I wasn't coming back. Told him to give the waterfront project to someone else. Told him I was staying in Seattle." "David, you can't do that. That firm was everything to you." "No, it wasn't. I thought it was, but I was wrong. You're everything to me. You always were. I was just too blind to see it." "You quit your job?" Claire repeated like she couldn't quite process it. "I did. And I've been looking at architecture firms here in Seattle. I've got some interviews lined up for after you're released. I'm not going back to Chicago. I'm building a life here. Whether or not you want me in yours is up to you, but I'm staying either way." Claire started crying. Not sad tears. Something else. Something that looked like hope mixed with fear. "Don't make promises you can't keep." "I'm not. I spent 3 months miserable in Chicago after you left. 3 months in my expensive apartment with my fancy title, completely alone and completely miserable. I'm done choosing wrong. I'm done putting work first. I'm done being the person who let you walk away.